What's going on, Don't Unfriend Me Nation? Matthew Spear from the Don't Unfriend Me Show. Good to have you here this morning. What are we doing? We're going after George Santos. Yep, he's a Republican, kinda. He's a weirdo without a beardo. We'll be going over that this morning. Stick around. The amazing feats and tales of George Santos. Sir George Santos, to be correct. We'll be right back. Giorgio Santos. Interesting. Do me a favor, folks, if you have not, please watch the show if you like it. Follow, like, and share at The Dumb Show. I would appreciate it mucho. Once upon a time, there was a man named George Santos, to be specific. He seemed to have an innate ability to conquer any challenge put before him. He had a magnetic personality and was always surrounded by people who marveled at his incredible accomplishments. I first heard of George when I was working as I guess you would say just a philanthropist in a remote jungle in South America. The locals spoke of a man who had discovered a cure for a rare disease that had plagued their village for years and years. They called him the Miracle Man, and they spoke of him with reverence. As I traveled the world, I kept hearing more stories about George. In Africa, he had trained with a group of SEAL teams and had led a mission to take down a notorious warlord who had been terrorizing the region. Quote, "He was a force to be reckoned with," one of the team members said. "I've never seen anyone move like he does." In Asia, George had made a groundbreaking discovery in the field of medicine. He had found a cure for a deadly virus that had been spreading rapidly through the region. "He's a genius," one of the scientists said. "He has a mind like no other." Indeed. He once discovered the moon was made of cheese, but was pilfered by Bigfoot and space aliens in a concerted effort to bring the galaxy fine hors d'oeuvres. What a man. In Europe, George had become a political advisor to several world leaders, helping to broker peace deals and solve complex international conflicts. He has an uncanny ability to read people and understand their motives, one of the diplomats said. "It's like he can see into our souls." George once won the Nobel Prize, the Olympic gold medal, and a Pulitzer Prize, all in one afternoon. And in North America, George had become an astronaut and had led several missions into space. You may have heard of these. He even discovered a new planet that had previously gone unnoticed. He's a pioneer, one of the NASA scientists said. He's taking us places like we never thought possible. He discovered that you can indeed lose weight if you never get on a scale and eat nothing but chocolate and small ducklings from Midland Farm ponds, minus the ducks because they are too difficult to catch. And chocolate isn't. He also counted to infinity twice, just to demonstrate that he could. Chuck Norris stood agape. I couldn't believe all the incredible things that George had accomplished. It was like he was a superhero, but he was real. I had to meet him, so I set out on a journey, and I trekked to find him. I finally caught up with George in Antarctica, where he was leading a team of scientists on a mission to study the effects of climate change. I introduced myself, and he welcomed me warmly. "I've heard of you," he said. "You're the 432,334,612th person on the earth that finds me glamorous." I was taken aback by his kindness, humility, and his uncanny ability with numbers and the truth. Here was a man who had done so much, but he was still so down to earth. We spent the next few days talking, and I learned that his secret to success was simple. He said, "I just follow my passion. I do what I love, and everything else falls into place." As I watched George disappear into the snowy horizon, I realized that he was not just a man, but a living legend. He had accomplished more in his lifetime than most people could ever dream of, and he had done it with grace and humility. I knew that I had just witnessed something truly extraordinary, and I felt privileged to have met him. If you believe any of that, then I have a bridge to sell you, and I am a Brazilian dictator who has found money from your uncle. I just need your social security and bank account number, and I will make a deposit post haste. People complain about opposition research and negative campaigning all the time, but the Santos case is the perfect example of why oppo research is necessary. And if research finds something significant, like the following, and the truthful negative campaigning and negative ads may be a drudgery, but they are necessary. The fact that Santos' opponents and the campaigns did not discover any of these things and publicized Santos' lies well before their elections amount to campaign malpractice. And certainly not him in the Amazon jungle or the Antarctic, because none of those things are true, obviously. But the issue I take are the things after this that are all out of George Santos' mouth. For those that support him, you want to keep a tally sheet. And from what I've seen, it looks like this. You say Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Hunter Biden, and people like Majewski up in Ohio are all liars. And you take the number of Democrat lies divided by George Santos, or whatever his name is today, by the number of lies he's told. And that's how you measure how honest your representative is. And that's just weird and wrong. It's not about the amount of lies. It's not about 100 lies or 1,000 lies, or supposedly that Trump said 37,000 lies in 4 years in office, whatever. The point is that the moment you do lie, you're a liar. And that's the way it works. Now, the things that George Santos has said, some of them may have portions of the truth. But he's lied about just about everything in the last 2 years since he's taken office. He lied about where he went to high school. Santos' parents immigrated from Brazil, and he says he attended Horace Mann School in the Bronx during his first years of high school, but had to leave the prestigious private academy in his senior year because my parents fell on hard times, which was something that would later become known as the Depression of 2008. Huh? He lied about college. He claimed he graduated with a degree in economics and finance from Baruch College in 2010. Later, he told the New York Post that he didn't graduate from any institution of higher learning at all. He never worked on Wall Street either. His campaign bio stated that he worked at Goldman Sachs and Citigroup, but representatives for both companies told the Times that they had no record of his employment. He also lied about founding an animal charity. Santos' campaign bio claimed he ran a foundation called Friends of Pets United, saving over 2,500 dogs and cats between 2013 and 2018. But there were no social media accounts for the organization, no IRS records, and no evidence of the charity being registered in New York, New Jersey, or anywhere else where Santos claimed to have operated. He allegedly swindled a disabled vet whose dog was dying. Let me go ahead and tell you this again. He allegedly swindled a disabled vet whose dog was dying. Santos also allegedly stole money from a disabled veteran who came to him for help funding a life-saving surgery for his dog. After Friends of Pets United put together a GoFundMe that got the money for the surgery, Santos then refused to give the money to Osthoff, whose dog died less than a year later. You can't write a story like that. How about his mother's death in 9/11? In July 2021, Santos wrote on Twitter that the September 11 attacks claimed my mother's life. On December 23, 2021, he said it was the 5th anniversary of his mother's passing, a loss confirmed by her obituary. Weeks after Santos' lies were made public, 2 genealogists found documents showing that his mother was in Brazil in September 2001. In 2003, Fatima de Volder applied for a visa to enter the U.S. In the document, she wrote that she had not been in the country since 1999. It's awfully difficult to die in the Twin Towers tragedy when you haven't been in the country since 1999. But this is George Santos' mother, superpowers excluded. His grandmother was definitely not a Holocaust victim. This one ticks me off, considering that my great-grandmother fled Germany, and we also know my history and genealogy with German soldiers in World War. I have both sides of the coin. This one frustrates me because in an interview with a conservative podcast in May 22, Santos said his grandparents survived the Holocaust, and his campaign bio claimed that they fled persecution during World War II. He did not have employees who died in the Pulse nightclub shooting, as he claimed in an interview with the WNYC following his election. Santos said he lost 4 employees in the Pulse nightclub shooting in 2016 to no avail. Jew-ish, sort of? He says, "I never claimed to be Jewish," Santos said in an interview with the Post, in which he also copped to his lies with his education. He said, "I'm Catholic because I learned my maternal family had a Jewish background. I said I was Jewish. I have Jewish blood in my family, and I am not Jew-ish in any way, shape, or form." It's amazing how this guy in his own head convinces himself of things. How about being a drag queen in Brazil? Santos is the first openly gay Republican to win a House seat as a non-incumbent. You think that would be a good thing. He initially denied the story on Twitter, saying the story was categorically false. Later, as people identified the story was one of the few relatable things Santos has ever done, he stopped contesting it, saying, "I had fun at a festival. Sue me for having life." This picture here shows you it looks a little bit more serious than some random makeup and a dress. Was he a Broadway producer? And was he really a journalist in Brazil? Was he the target of an assassination attempt in December? What is actually true about George Santos? The truth is, he's in a lot of trouble. 9 a.m. this morning, he is supposed to be indicted. Santos will face federal criminal charges and he'll be arraigned, and the specific charges will be read. Here's what's known so far about the irregularities in Santos's filings. I don't have any privy information as far as what the charges will be, but most assuredly, some of these things will more than likely be attached. It's important to know he is innocent until proven guilty in this country, but based upon his past, his word, and his credo, I have a lot of doubts whether these things are false or not. Here's what we know about the irregularities so far in Santos's filings. 1,200 payments of $199.99, 2 cents below the threshold where receipts would be required on a T&E for expense. A suspicious unregistered fund that raised vast sums of money for Santos. A line item for $40,000 for air travel. A payment of $11,000 to a company called Cleaner 123 for apartment rental for staff for a house on Long Island that neighbors said Santos had been living in himself. Santos's campaign eventually amended the campaign finance disclosures 36 times and may have misrepresented contributions. Some of the contributions disappeared entirely from the record as well. Santos has been under scrutiny for months from the Justice Department over questions surrounding his 2022 campaign and finance activities. And during his arraignment, specific charges will be revealed to all. Here's the problem. Republicans were supposed to be the law and order party, something we're supposed to covet, protect, the thin blue line, the Constitution. All of these things are important to us. We could have gotten ahead of this a long time ago, because the problem here is that we keep putting clowns in positions of power. There's no reason for George Santos to be where he is at. He certainly hasn't earned it. There is a chronological order to every one of his lies. If his mouth is open, he's obviously not telling the truth. If we want the swamp to go away in Washington, we have to clean up our own dredges and drudgeries before we go ahead and point on the other side of the aisle. We must be impeachable and unflappable in our own resolve to ensure that we're holding our elected officials to the same standard and the lofty standards that we expect from the opposition. This isn't about Republican or Democrat. I will never draw those lines of delineation. If you're wrong, you need to be held accountable. Period. Plain and simple. George Santos, the Pied Piper is coming, and even though you're his uncle, you're going to need to answer and pay the toll. Interesting story. Republicans need to get their stuff together. George Santos is not the only one in Washington who needs to be held accountable. There are plenty of Democrats just like him, and they need to have their day in court as well. Folks, thanks for watching the Don't Unfriend Me show. I appreciate it. Would you do me a favor, please? Stop on by Twitter. Say hello. Go to @TheDumbShow. Follow, like, share, and subscribe if you like the show. If not, well, maybe tomorrow it will be better. We'll be live 8 o'clock tonight with a Donald Trump town hall on CNN. Should be interesting, especially after the civil case yesterday going against Donald Trump, $5 million to Jean Carroll. Whether you agree or disagree, let me know. Tell me below. and tell me what you thought about today's episode. I do appreciate it, and I will see you soon. Thanks for watching the Don't Unfriend Me show, and God bless.
I'm David Boreanaz with the Cast of SEAL team, and we have an important message for returning vets.
We want you to know if you're struggling to cope, there's help and it's just a phone call away.
The Veterans Crisis Line is staffed with experienced professionals who know your struggles.
There's no greater sacrifice than service to our country. We're able to enjoy our freedoms because of it.
Your service is important, you are important.
For vets and their families, the Veterans Crisis Line is here to help 24 hours a day. Please call